Welcome back to Geek Channel 8, GC8 for short. I'm Eric.
I'm Will.
Today we're going to do the second season of Primal.
On everybody's advice, I went to see Sinners in the movie theater with my wife, and we both really, really loved it. I'm not going to give any spoilers. You should go see it. It's good on almost any level for anybody.
It's on my list, but it's a period piece, so it's going to have to wait until I get to that time period.
Uh, at this point, your obsession with getting things in temporal order is like, I'm like, man, there's something I need to know about Eric. Where are you? What time frame are you actually from, Eric? Are you trying to reorder the timeline? What is going on? But
Hey, we'll get there. We'll do it when we whatever year it's set in, we'll do an entire season on that year and we'll do movies set in that year and that'll
oh
be one of
man, you
them.
could have a lot of fun with that, man. Oh my gosh. So I am going to put this out here for the inside scoop for anybody who knows. If you know, you know. If you are a Call of Cthulhu enjoyer, you're going to enjoy this. There you go. That's what I'm going to say.
All right. Well, let's talk about Primal season 2. Primal is actually the fifth show Tartakovsky created for Cartoon Network Studio. And I think the reason that it's called Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal is because he needed to get a little credit for a change. Like, you may not have heard of his name before, but you've seen his stuff. He is the secret weapon behind Cartoon Network. Really, all of their best shows, he's had a hand in, whether it's the Powerpuff Girls, he created Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, Star Wars Clone Wars, a Symbionic Titan,
Oh wow.
and now Primal. So this is the fifth show he's created for them. And he's also directed or worked on a bunch of others. Like I mentioned, Powerpuff Girls, but that's just one of, if it was on Cartoon Network and it was good, chances are he probably worked on it at some point. This is also the first Cartoon Network studio series made entirely for and aired on Adult Swim. And as we said last time, it's the first show they've made that has been rated TV 14 or TVMA for mature. And it is mature. Tartakovsky came up with the idea for Primal while he was working on the final season of Samurai Jack in 2017. And at first, it was going to be more of a kid's story with Spear being a kid also.
Okay.
But then Pixar released The Good Dinosaur in 2015. And Tartakovsky decided to put the project on hold and pick it back up once he was done with Samurai Jack. So he mentioned that Primal was actually something he started earlier than that, but scrapped because it didn't quite click at the time.
Mm.
And as he learned more about what pulled people into his shows, he wanted to try out certain artistic choices, especially the idea of using no dialogue and also adding slower moments into these cartoons. And he thought folks might not take it seriously since it's about a man and a dinosaur together, which he admitted was, quote, breaking the rules. This is something that in a lot of other situations might bother me. Like we talked about early man, the mixture of Stone Age and Bronze Age
Right.
and Modern Age kind of bothered me. And we will get to that definitely in this season because we get Stone Age and Bronze Age and Iron Age. But we'll get to that. He realized that he was sort of breaking the rules, but he wanted it to be a character driven study, basically a buddy journey about two different characters bonded by tragedy. I
Mhm.
think we all know that by now after having gone through the first season.
Oh yeah.
The style and storytelling in Primal draw on a bunch of influences like Conan the Barbarian, Osamu Tezuka, Frank Frazetta, Mobius, Ralph Bakshi, and Heavy Metal Magazine.
Mm.
So you mentioned heavy metal last time. Heavy metal is definitely an influence. Tartakovsky also mentioned that vintage pulp novels and movies like The Revenant inspired him. Scott Wills, the art director, said nature documentaries were a big inspiration as well. And the series is influenced by the 1925 Robert E. Howard short story called Spear and Fang. Have you read Spear and Fang before?
No.
He wrote some caveman stories, and it's one of those. It's in the public domain as of this year, I think. So you can find it free online. There are no dinosaurs in it. It's just about Neanderthal versus Cro-Magnon.
Huh.
But if you read it, you'll see definite influences on this series. The first season has 10 episodes. On August 31st, 2020, Primal was renewed for a second season with 10 episodes. June 16th, 2023, it got a third season renewal again for 10 episodes. So there are 10 more to come in the future. Spears, growls, and roars are done by voice actor Aaron LaPlante. Tartakovsky first met him while they were working on a new animated Popeye movie where LaPlante recorded temporary dialogue for Bluto. You know, it's
Huh.
going to be replaced by someone else. That project eventually stalled, but Tartakovsky liked LaPlante's work so much he's cast him in various projects since. Little fun fact here, Spears' design actually showed up in an episode of Dexter's Laboratory where a caveman ends up in the present and becomes friends with Dee Dee.
I love it.
So possibly a crossover there.
Wait, Dee Dee. Wait,
That's the sister.
Is Dee Dee the prototype for Mira?
No, Mira's nowhere near as annoying as Dee Dee. All right, music composers Tyler Bates and Joanne Higginbottom, who had worked on Samurai Jack season 5, they came back to score this show. If you're wondering about the voices, Tom Kenny, who's worked with Tartakovsky on most of his projects, voices some of the monkeys in the episode Rage of the Ape Man, which is kind of a director's trademark there. That's basically a nutshell background to the story. So I think a lot of the stuff you probably figured out already that it was influenced by heavy metal and Mobius and that kind of stuff.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
What are you munching on while you watch Primal?
Okay, so this is a little contrary because I could say, but like, well, meat. No, but no. If we look back at everything we have seen so far, what we see that they eat in times of peace, the very relatively few times of peace, is fish. They're always eating fish. They fish that if they're spearfishing, it's a relaxing moment. It is
Now, wait a minute. Spearfishing is how this whole series started, and his kids got killed by a dinosaur. And then spearfishing again happened right before Fang was kidnapped and nearly killed.
yeah.
So fishing is like the most traumatic thing in this series. But anyway,
But well, that's because there's only tiny moments of peace followed by intense terror and desperation. But it is the fishing that I'm like I keep going back to. It's the one thing. It's what they eat when they are in a moment of relative peace and calm that doesn't last. So I'm going to give you two options. These are crazy ass options, but you're going to enjoy them, but probably. On the one hand, keep it simple. Just go and get the most basic bitch, as the kids say, and get yourself some grocery store freaking sushi and eat that because that's how they eat it. Most of the time, even though Arcade Man has fire, he don't bother to cook anything. He just eats it. He just takes a big old bite out of it. And of course, so does the dinosaur. So just eat yourself some sushi. It's a lot safer. I'm not recommending you go outside and spearfish a fish and eat that because parasites. But on the other hand, when it comes to spearfishing in America and all the fish you want to eat, there's one thing that you can just go anywhere where they are and you can fish them. And it is something that Americans frown on and poo-poo, but is actually eaten all over the world. And that's carp. Okay. Carp is a
Crap. Sorry, I'm not a carp fan, but yeah, okay.
but you know it. It's like everywhere else in the world, people eat carp. Here, no. We're like, oh, it's got bones and it's a trash fish. And I'm like, man, you should know the things. All the fish that you love, like a lot of them are just they're quote trash fish. It doesn't matter. What matters what they've been eating, and it matters how you cook it and treat it. But to keep it simple, go any place where there is an ethnic market that sells fish, and they will probably have carp. And you can decide for yourself whether it's delicious or not. If you're a hunter or fisher, there's no limit on carp. You can,
Yeah, you know what? Most carp are used for fertilizer or bait.
yes, exactly. But if you look into it, there's a lot of good videos on eating carp. You know, even if you're like, I don't want to eat bones, there's ways around that and all that stuff. It is a primal, yes, joke intended, sort of thing to say, I'm going to eat this thing. I'm going to eat around the bones. I'm going to do all that stuff. No, I'm not a big fish fan myself, but I'm like, man, you know it's meat, right? But we're humans. We do what we do. I will not recommend that you try to make sushi out of carp because parasites. But other than that,
Yeah, see, the way that you eat carp is in a fish log. You like
yes.
cut it all up into little bits and you roll it and you batter it and you deep fry it. That is the acceptable way. You got to heat that carp to temperatures you can only get when you're deep frying something because you want to cook the carp out of it.
Okay, all right. So one thing that my friend here is referring back to is there's a legendary place that's no longer open in our hometown. It was just this place along the road. It was a bar, restaurant. I when I was a construction worker, we'd go there on lunches, and they would have the beer ready for the guys who did that. They just like pouring as soon as we got there. But the key thing was the sign on the side. What did it say? In giant letters, fish log. That's what it said. And this was so beloved that even after it closed down and they took down the sign, someone knitted an entire sign to replace that sign. They like had taken down the letters. So someone knitted one and put it over top of that. And then, of course, it didn't last. And eventually, the owners of the place were like, fine, and they put back up fish law because that has always been there as far as we're concerned. It should always be there. It is a cultural treasure.
Okay. All right.
I don't know
enough
if I
about
gave you any good snacks, but there you go, stories.
enough about fish logs. Let's jump in and talk about the sea itself, the Sea
Oh
of
my
Despair,
gosh.
episode 1 of season 2. All right, so Spear tries to swim after the ship that's just taken Mira away, and he fails. You really think he's probably going to drown, but he eventually comes back up on the shore, and he and Fang build a raft.
Yes.
He At first Fang's like, I'm not getting on that thing, And then he uses Mira's trick of luring Fang with the bugs that she likes to eat, and then lures Fang onto the raft. And at first, there's a calm sea, and he has to keep pushing until he's exhausted. And eventually, Fang gets the idea and takes a turn pushing the raft. None of this makes any sense. But
No,
then
wait,
there's
when you say it doesn't make any sense, it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense because it's crazy. They don't know what they're doing.
they don't know where they're going. They don't know how to get there. They don't know how to navigate the ocean. Like this is just makes no sense to me. I'm gonna keep coming back to this over and over again. As much as I love this show, the second season has some real leaps of logic in it, and this is one of them. So it's wonderful night sea scenes, where
Oh
we get to see
yeah.
the stars and meteor showers and stuff like that. They drift for days. The problem is they're getting hungrier and hungrier. They have nothing to eat. Finally, they see a archelon, giant sea turtle,
Yeah.
and there's this battle where he swims down and he eventually catches hold of it and it comes up. And between him and Fang, they manage to finally kill it and eat it. And they get to use the shell to create like a lean to. so that they have some
Shade.
shade from the sun. The water eventually turns rough, and a bunch of jumping flying fish come by, and they attract aerial predators. So suddenly now we got dive bombing aerial predators, a flock of, I believe they're Tropiognathus. And then there's a megalodon that shows up, and they eventually fight it off, and a storm knocks them out. And then Fang wakes up alone on a remote beach. Spear is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Okay. Reactions to this episode?
I totally get they didn't know what they're doing and it didn't make any sense. It doesn't bother me at all. It was this leap of faith that both of them were going to jump into the unknown to they were just you know, I mean, he's not dumb, but he has no sense of the scale of the world. We don't actually either. We don't know. This could be inland sea. We don't know whatever, but he just is like, no, okay, now we do this. And then he's kind of fucked because he doesn't know what he's doing. We see him figuring out how to make a raft. That's a thing you could do in this episode. So he does not have any boating experience. He doesn't care about living or dying as much as he cares about family. Again, we see this. So
Yeah, but there's a limit I have to like between risk taking and stupidity. A couple of times he dives way down in the ocean and swims around. Like he's even going to be able to find the raft again when he surfaces. And they're like a storm at sea, forget about it. And just the fact that they don't even know which direction they're going.
yeah.
Next episode, episode 12, Shadow of Fate.
Okay, so this is cool because they are separated. And that's like for the first time, really. Right?
Yep.
We see Fang. She's looking to hunt and she encounters another of her kind. And they have to negotiate this whole like, hey, I'm hunting or no, I'm hunting here. Well, they work it out. It's another emphasis is that these are not unintelligent. These are not animals per se. They are no more animals than, well, thing is, they're having the conversations in their own ways and they're negotiating things. They start hanging out and even find a tree with rotting fruit that is really delicious. They get high, drunk, whatever.
Well, yeah, at first they're eating the fruit off the tree, and then like Fang, I think, like eats one off the ground, and then they're like, "Oh, this is good. Eat the fermenting fruit on the ground."
Yes, which I love it because it does. It totally mirrors a real world process of like, yeah, animals do that because a drunk moose. That's a perfect example. But anyway, yeah. So after their drunken debauchery, they wake up. Her friend is like, "Hey, come on, come with me. I got a great place to eat. Follow me." And she follows them to a village.
Yep.
Which, on the other half, what's going on is we have Spear.
Okay, so he's found unconscious on the beach by some humanoids
Yes.
who take him back to their village, and it turns out they are humans, and they are much more of the Cro-Magnon type of human. In fact, they seem kind of Celtic.
Yeah.
And they try to nurse him back to health. There's a hag that's like their medicine woman, and she tries once or twice, and he freaks out, like the medicine smells weird. He doesn't know what they're doing to him.
They're very patient with him, though. He's obviously very powerful, but they also are like, you're a human. We can tell that. Like, why fight? Let's not fight.
Yeah.
Even though you beat the crap out of one of our guys.
He has a broken arm, and they set that, and he's healing at the time that this red T-Rex and Fang show up at the village. Like Red creeps in and immediately eats a villager.
Yeah. It's like they're all in one place and they're delicious and soft. So
we haven't seen Spear yet, but this is gonna be bad.
yeah. So as he does, because this is something we've seen over and over again, Spear is like immediately like, nope, I'm in it. He's not like, hey, these are not my people. I don't need to. Nope. He's about kicking this ass, right? The fight, oh my God, is awesome. But the key is when Fang shows up, she's not going to let him kill Red. Right?
Yeah, it gets into this complicated tug of war where like first she's got to defend Red from Spear, And then she has to defend Spear from Red, and it goes back and forth.
Yes, yes.
Now, there's no way she's going to convince these villagers that Red is okay because he just ate one of them.
Right.
And they are immediately Spear's ally because they saved his life and they healed him. So he's on their side. He doesn't know the backstory about Fang hanging out with Red. But on the other hand, Fang is also not going to let them kill Red. So it's a real rock and a hard place situation here. Dino Battle of the Week.
This is it. This is it, yo.
This is the Dino Battle of the Week.
She's determined that she's not going to kill either one of these guys, and she has the power to. She's very formidable, but it ends in tragedy, sort of, because neither one of them is backing down. So Red ends up dead, and it's not okay.
Well, not just dead. Red attacks Spear.
Yeah.
In order to protect Spear, Fang kicks Red away.
Yeah.
But ends up kicking him off of a cliff onto spears, onto big pikes or whatever that are in the village. And so essentially, Fang kills Red, even though it was accidental.
Yeah.
And so then Fang is just depressed and slumps down and walks away out of the village. The villagers try to get Spear to stay with them, but he won't stay either, and he follows Fang out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is like, she's not okay with him. Like, you look what you made me fucking do. It's hard. This 100% could have been like, a story of like survival in the Old West. A family getting separated, one being taken in and adopted by Native Americans, the other one by a wagon train, blah, 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 and then coming into conflict. As a matter of fact, great movie called, Jesus, it's going to escape me. It's a Dustin Hoffman movie, and it's about a guy being interviewed in a old folks home, and they're talking to him about his life, and they were interviewing him because he was supposedly one of the last great Indian fighters, but as it turns out,
Oh yeah, that's Little Big Man, right?
The Little Big Man. Yes, I don't know why it escaped me for a moment because it's one of my favorite movies. But yeah, there's some of that in there. Okay, yeah. So that it reminds me of that conflict in there because he and his sister get separated and then they come back into conflict. So Little Big Man is some of our old movies may not hold up, but that one I think really would. So give it that shot if you guys want to. So yeah, this was a big emotional thing. They're emotionally separated because of what happened. It's a big deal. But it's not enough to stop them from, still being together.
Right. Let's move on to Dawn of Man. This is the beginning of where I start having more problems with this series, but we'll go into it later. This is where the seeds are sown. So they're sitting in the rain, all depressed, and finally they go roaming to find a cave to get dry. In the cave, Spear finds cave paintings, and he goes wandering in the cave and has visions of other people. And the next day, he finds a valley with giant deer and longhorn bison, and he has visions of the people from the cave paintings hunting them. He finds an abandoned village and a new spear, and he spear hunts for himself and Fang. Later that night, Spear and Fang are attacked by two guys with metal helmets and weapons. Okay. This is the beginning of what starts to bother me about this series, but not the main thing. They're Vikings. Like, they're pretty much clearly Vikings, or that's what they're patterned on. They've got horned helmets and stuff like that, and they're riding bears. All right. Big ass cave bears, too, like bigger than grizzlies. All right. Spear's injured, and there's this massive battle that is very hard won against two bears and two warriors with swords, and he sees the scorpion sign on it, which was the brand that Mira had on her head and also on the sail of the ship that took her away.
Yeah.
So he goes after one. He's like yelling at him, Mira, and stuff like that. They kill both bears. They kill one of the guys and they chase the other one down. And then Fang kills him and Spear takes his sword. So now he's no longer Spear, he's Sword, I guess. He's got a sword. They follow the cave bear tracks to a village, and Spear finds a group of slaves, and Mira is there. He tries to get Mira to leave, but she refuses to leave the rest of the slaves behind. And so they lead the whole bunch of them out of the village. And then we hear something growling in the nearby mist. Okay. I have nothing completely wrong with this episode. There's nothing that I don't like, but I'm starting to see, okay, we skip all the way to the Iron Age here with swords and helmets and, all of that. Now, there's been magic in this and witches and invisible dinosaurs and stuff like that. So I'm willing to give it a pass. It's fantasy. But the seeds here are sown for something that really bothers me in a coming episode, and we'll get to that.
I'm not sure what the seeds are for you, but like, this guy is an epic hero. He is superhumanly badass, right? I'm not sure which episode. I think it's this one or the next one. When you look up the series, you'll see a picture of these two, and they are like peppered in arrows. They're just like, they shake off shit that other things would kill anything else, right? I think the fighting was good and epic. It was set up for the next episode, which is sort of the big deal, right? Liked it.
Yeah. Vikings on Grizzlies, that alone is super cool. Yeah, it's a good episode. All right, that brings us to episode 14, The Red Mist.
Yeah. The thing is that these people are not giving up their slaves that easily. And they're all warriors.
Yeah, that's what comes out of the mist, is these warriors on bears.
Yeah. So effectively, it is just at this point, the three of them against the entirety of this village.
All of the slaves immediately bow down and like, okay, fair enough. Maybe, this has been beaten into them. I would have liked this been like, okay, you don't have to fight, but at least run in every direction. They can't catch us all, that kind of thing. That's what I would have liked to have seen. Or, obviously the best would be like, okay, we all fight back. But I could see, these are guys on bears with swords, all the slaves are like unarmed and like basically practically naked. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Right.
But you could at least run away. Like that's what I would do. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna run or hide, something, not just be right out in the middle like targets, or like, Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
That's a minor soapbox compared to what I've got coming up.
There's this massive fight. I mean, I think they end up burning the village, but it is Spear, Fang, and Mira at this point against the entire village. And when I say entire village, not just men and women, but like children. Babies are fighting them.
Yeah, this is like a Viking thing, right? Supposedly even the kids and the women and kids would fight. Yeah.
And the horror on Spear's face, I don't want to kill a kid. The kid's trying to kill him. It's like, in terms of crazy badass action, it's really good. And, Spear is usually berserk, right? I'm just going in, straight in, etc. And this, we get a lot of him killing people in the mist, in the darkness, in the flame and fire and all that stuff. He's doing a lot of that.
They eventually kill the entire village.
The entire village. Everybody.
And this is important because they steal a boat and head off downriver just before another Viking, who I guess is supposed to be the chieftain. I didn't know that, but I saw that one online. And their son. I think it's their son. I wasn't sure if it was just another young boy that happened to be traveling with him or if he was literally his son.
Oh, yeah, just his son. Yeah, absolutely.
And they come back. They've got some slaves. They see all the carnage. They bury their dead. They let the slaves free. They let the only remaining slaves there free. and then they set off on another boat in pursuit.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I have a problem with this episode. In the previous episode, Dawn of Man, just two of these Vikings who were armed with swords and riding these bears, just two of them was an epic battle for Spear and Fang to take on. Here, they're taking on 50 of them or something. Like, I just didn't buy it. I'm like, there's no freaking way. Even if they had had the slaves helping them, like throwing rocks and stuff like that, which they didn't have, but even if they had that, I don't think they could have taken on that many, you know?
Okay.
And it raises the bar so high that in future episodes, unless they're taking on an entire village of armored, sword wielding, cave bear riding Vikings, it's like, okay, that's now the new threshold of what they're built. Like, they are now level 14 fighters, you know? It's like they're no longer like anything that's level 5 is not a threat to them anymore, you know? It's just like once you've reached a certain level in your favorite MMO, like if you go back to a beginner's area, just like you could walk through it and things could be attacking you and you could not even raise a finger and have to worry about it, you know?
Okay, so you mentioned the leveling up, and that makes a lot of sense. But I'm going to take it further back into our prehistory, and it's like this: you're reading a comic book, and the first time a villain shows up, they are a dire threat. They're like the villain of the week. It's everything your hero can do to beat their ass, right? But by the third time, he's like, "Ugh, not you again." Uh, you see this all the time. And Spider-Man's a perfect example. The first time he meets the Vulture, it's like, oh my God. And then it's like, after a while, he's just a jobber. He's just a joke. It's like, oh, this guy. And then, of course, they go through cycles where they resurrect their level of threat. But essentially, this is very in keeping with a comic book thing, which is like the first time you see the threat, it's overwhelming. But as it goes on, your hero gets better, and it's not the same. Whether that's good or bad, it is a truism through the whole medium that the threat, they've totally leveled up. And like I mentioned before, it's like they're like taking arrows and and stuff. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they're like pincushioned with arrows. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk more about this in a future episode because remember I said when they showed up, that was the beginning of the seed. Now the seed is starting to grow of what bothers me. We'll get to the real, like the maximum bother of this in a future episode. But first, we're going to take a little detour with episode 5 of this second series, episode 15 overall. It's called the Primal Theory. Okay, this one is definitely different.
oh yeah.
And it is some indication of where this series is going to go in the future because it's probably, I think Tartakovsky said it's going to be an anthology going forward. So this one doesn't have Spear and Fang in it at all. It's not set in prehistory.
Yeah.
It's not set in even the jungle or the wilds. It is in a mansion. The whole thing takes place in London in 1890. All right. So almost on the cusp of the 20th century here. This one is called The Primal Theory. There's a bunch of English gentlemen in a drawing room, maybe it would be called.
Yeah.
This is like the Adventurers Club. Remember way back when we watched The Lost World?
Yep.
There was the Geological Society or whatever. This is them.
100% that, yes.
So there's these guys and they're sitting around sipping brandy. No women, of course, just men, like sipping brandy and discussing scientific things. One of them is Charles Darwin, and he's trying to defend his theory of evolution.
They even call him that, or do they just call him Charles?
I think they call him Darwin. I think
Okay.
they call him Darwin. Yeah.
Right.
They I think they mostly go by like their last names.
That
It's
makes
Darwin,
sense.
Darlington, Blakely, Bertie, and Gerard. They do call him Charles sometimes too. Anyway, he says that in the right situation, any person would regress back to their primitive roots in order to survive. Darlington dismisses this lunacy because we are refined humans. And I feel like this was definitely something pervasive competing ideals because you had this sort of Judeo-Christian, like, no, we are far above the animals. We are like a separate thing. We have dominion over the beasts, by our very nature that been instilled in us by God. And then there's this other theory, the Darwinian theory, that's like cropping up where it's like, no, we're basically animals. We're just animals that manage to survive. That's pretty accurate, right?
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely.
Then suddenly this Bobby shows up, constable or whatever, and he comes and he tells them, you should cut this short. There's an escaped lunatic from the asylum. Again, he has basically gone all in on like Lovecraftian Cthulhu. Like this is that, right? This is
Yeah.
pulp. Like, oh my God, he hits all the perfect beats. Like, if you like this stuff, which I do. They don't take it seriously. And then they go on with their discussion. And then, of course, something breaks in and kills the butler. And then starts picking them off one by one. And we get a look at him, and it's this huge, crazy dude that resembles Spear.
Yeah.
It's obviously not Spear. There's enough facial differences and stuff like that, but he resembles Spear and he fights like Spear. He has definitely got the berserk rage thing going on. Giraud and Birdie both die. Darlington has like guns and swords on display on the wall. They grab those, and there's this epic battle.
Oh yeah. Every weapon you can think of, like spears,
And
blows,
eventually
stuff.
down to bare knuckles, because it turns out that Darlington is like a former pugilist, and so like you get like the old style of boxing. It is awesome. Finally, it comes down to Darlington and him, and he like has this giant spear.
I think it was a piece of bone at that point.
Yeah,
It was like
bone
bone
that he stabs him, and then at the very last moment, Charles is like, "See, it proves my theory," which is like a long way to go for a punchline. But I found this detour totally amusing. I totally understood it. I was like, okay, right now we need a break in what's going on with Spear and Fang. And, we got nothing else we can cut to. This is an interesting story. We can remind people why this show is called Primal.
Yeah.
All I got to say is, it seemed like it was coming out of left field for the first 10 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes. I'm like, what the hell? Did I turn on the wrong show? But once the lunatic shows up and starts killing people, I'm like, okay, this is Spear and Fang,
At first I was like, wow. We just jumped into the Iron Age. Are we going to make another jump into like, the Victorian age? I mean, are these all going to exist in the same, world at the same time? And that's not what it was about. But I was there for it. If that was what they were going to do, I was like, cool, let's see what you do. But yeah, it was a fun one. And I, like you said, I'm like, yeah, this is what I feel like you're right. It is going to be the direction that this show is liable to go, because it's like, yeah, you could do this. And again, it's like a comic book where it's like, wait, suddenly we have this one episode that just totally diverts from everything else. But, you get the flavor, you understand. So yeah, I like it. It was very good.
I think they also wanted to remind people the thesis statement of the show. It's like, why is this show called Primal? This is why.
Why?
That takes us to episode 16, which is called Vidar.
So Spear and Fang and Mira are on the boat. She's taking care of them. They are both very severely wounded. She's brought mud. She's taking care of all that stuff, and they're all together again. It's great. They're gathering supplies and they're getting on the boat. The thing is that Fang gives birth to baby dinosaurs, and this is a huge deal.
Well, lays eggs.
Lays eggs.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for correcting me on that. She lays eggs, and oh my God, Spear is so happy. He is just over the moon happy, and he wants to touch them, and she's like, "Get the fuck away!" And they take a stop, and they're on land, and that's when she makes a nest and she gives birth.
They were going down river. They hit rapids. This was the first place they were able to pull off.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a kind of a big deal that they work through, she's like, "This is my baby, stay away." And they're like, "We love your babies." And they have to trick her and get the eggs on board in a nest. And she's like, "Okay, fine." But it's like, these are his kids. That's what they are. He's so excited. He's so happy. All right. So important emotional notes there. They are pursued by the Viking, the man, his son. They are intercepted, and the huge fight ensues. One of the things I really love about this episode, and we see this earlier, but Mira is very, very competent. She knows how to steer a boat. She knows how to fight. She uses a bow and etc. She fights, kicks, screams, does everything. She is not a damsel. She's not the super heroic badass that these two are, because they just take damage like crazy, but she holds her own, and she's important.
Let me talk about this episode. They're going down river, and they're attacked by the Vikings. I call them Olaf and Eldar. I don't know what their real names are. The episode's called Vidar, so maybe one of them is called Vidar. So maybe it's Olaf and Vidar, or Vidar and Eldar. I don't know. Anyway, I call them Olaf and Eldar. Mira manages to get control of the Viking ship.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Eldar is thrown overboard, and the chieftain has to abandon the fight to save him. This is where a bunch of my pet peeves come in this episode.
Ooh.
First of all, they leveled up. They just took on an entire tribe of bear riding, sword bearing, helmet wearing Vikings. This time, they have a hard battle with just two of them, one of whom is a kid, or at least a young guy. I don't buy it. Like, now you have Mira, like you said, she's very common. She's got a bow and arrow. You got Fang, is like, about to give birth, so she's like particularly ornery. And then you've got Spear, still Spear, So they outnumber these two. We've already seen that they're capable of taking on a whole village of these guys. I don't buy it.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say right away. First of all, these guys are fully armored. Nobody else was that. Okay, and I think they make a point of that at some point where it's like, "Oh, that doesn't work." Where normally you would be dead because of this, but no, a lot of this is, again, it's like, these are the elite, the two baddest badasses, and it's like, well, you killed everybody in this village, yeah, but this is Batman. I mean, they still lose. But like, this is Batman. That's why he's hard to fight, because he is the best one in the village. He is the most elite. If there's a village of first level people, this is the guy who's like their leader, and he is like 8th level or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. Just pulling numbers on my ass. And to keep it a little skeeky, it's like, yeah, this is the hero. Ironically, considered he's a slaver, but anyway, of the village, and he is also motivated by vengeance and blah blah blah.
Okay, all right.
So
all right.
that's it. This is
All right.
this is way beyond any realism. This is all the way deep into mythology, and just heroic storytelling.
All right, let me get to my next pet peeve. They go over the rapids. They finally make it to shore. Just getting the ship onto shore is difficult, where they have to like drag it onto shore using a rope. Fang makes a nest. Fang lays eggs. Then everything's good. It's calm. But then they gotta leave. Why do they gotta leave? Because Mira gets bored. And like, so she's like, basically, okay, I'm gonna put the eggs on the ship and we're gonna leave. There is no reason to be risking those eggs after everything that Fang has been through by like taking them on a boat. No, let them stay here and hatch. If you get attacked here, you fight here. But going back on the water where you don't know what you're doing, yeah, never mind. And you have no idea where the river's gonna take you. No. I'm like, no, just Why? Because as soon as they get back on the river, that's when trouble happens.
Okay, I'm gonna my counter is, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have waited, etc., because by all sides they should have waited, but she was like, I, everything. I want to go home. She's still not done trying to get home. She's trying to go home. That's where she wants to go, and it's like, in this world, what am I? I could wait here and get attacked, or I could get attacked on my way home. Maybe I'll even make it home. It's a crazy ass world. So I didn't see her as like, I'm bored. It's more like, okay, we need to get moving, and I want to go home.
Tactically stupid maneuver.
The importance of the eggs. That's why I totally got these things out of order, because that was like the appearance of the eggs and the importance of them was the most. That was it right there for me for this episode. Yes, the fight was cool and all that, but yeah.
Okay, now there's more here. The chieftain, I guess he's supposed to be the chieftain, and Eldar, Olaf and Eldar, or Vidar, or whoever, they see these giant prehistoric bird things.
Yeah.
I think they're slightly more evolved from pterosaurs. So they climb a mountain and they basically learn how to ride these things, which, man, that was fast. But okay, I remember Turok. So
That's what I was gonna say. Totally Turok.
yeah, Turok did it first. So this turns into an aerial battle eventually, where they're like,
Yeah.
they swoop down, they grab them, and then Eldar and Vidar, they fall off. They plummet to the ground. The chieftain actually survives, but he sees Eldar falling to his death, and then the grieving chieftain basically gets swept down river, and Spear and Mira take this flying creature and they reunite with Fang.
Yeah.
And then Fang finally allows Spear to touch the eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Following this is the start of the final story arc. It's called the Colosseus.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-parter. I thought Colosseus referred to a being because there's like multiple beings here that would fit that description. But I didn't find out until I looked it up online. I don't know how you were supposed to know this. That's the name of the ship.
Yeah, I immediately assumed that. It's like the Death Star, man.
The fallen warrior guy, he sees celestials coming for him, like Valkyries or something. But then he's taken to some hell-like place where there's like a satanic being who transforms him into what I wrote down as a fiery Colossus. So that's what I thought was the Colossus. And then meanwhile, Spear and Fang and Mira relocate Fang's eggs to the ship and set sail. Why? Question mark. Again, until they are attacked by marauders. They kill a bunch, and then there's a battle, and there's this big guy. So I thought, okay, maybe this guy is supposed to be the Colossus. After it destroys one of Fang's eggs, they all attack and get the upper hand before another wave of warriors captures them, and their queen takes Fang's eggs. They basically force them to fight with their army, which is kind of like Egyptian looking.
Yeah, I was thinking Phoenician, but whatever,
Yeah, the ship itself has an eye of
Horus.
Eye of Horus on the side of it. Yeah, and so I think they're Egyptian, but I don't know. Maybe that spread all the way to the Phoenicians. I have no idea. Whatever the case is, it doesn't matter because this is all fantasy land. This is not like actual Egyptian. This being, Satan turns him into that, and he's like pursuing them in the background. It ends with what looks like a Babylonian city being sacked, and like because they basically have to, Spear and Fang joining in the fight.
Right. They are basically turned into weapons to fight for this tyrannical, this evil queen. They're out there in the world and they get overtaken by the Death Star. Or even lower, just it's like this thing is huge, and it has little ships that come out and fight them, and you have this empress basically who's in control of this entire ginormous. I mean, this is a ship that's so big that birds fly in its wake, and it's like almost like an island to itself. And they are mistreated and thrown into the dungeons, and the huge man that is a match for them that helps beat the crap out of them, which, why is he working for them? Why is he doing that? And there's a whole bunch of faceless minions. They literally wear masks and they get murdered by the dozens. But she doesn't care. So it's clear the queen does not care. So yeah, it's to me a very parallel to like a giant Death Star and this evil queen, and I love it. It was crazy. I mean, you get to see him fighting, and this is one of the few times where I'm like, oh, you're sort of reusing the animation because they're like fighting these different armies, and it's like one army after the next, and you see him killing them in almost exactly the same way, just wailing on them, and then going back to the ship to heal up for the next fight.
Okay, so episode 18, the Colossus Part 2. What I thought was the Colossus, but I guess it's not. Like this fiery being emerges from hell. Spear and Fang and the giant keep working as soldiers for the queen, who has Fang's eggs and the giant's daughter captive. So we know why they're all doing this. Mira is expected to dance before the queen. She doesn't understand at first, and then the queen does a dance to demonstrate. Finally, they come to a peaceful culture that offers them food when they land, but the queen insists the giant kill them anyway, threatening his child if he doesn't. Spear escapes his cell, and he doesn't let Fang out immediately, I guess because he thinks it's safer. I don't know. He tries to let the giant out, but giant doesn't want to leave his cell. So he goes off to like take on the queen himself. Mira grabs the eggs and the girl. Spear takes on the army. And then in the middle of all this battle, the eggs start hatching
Yeah,
after one of them gets destroyed in the battle.
yeah,
So the queen grabs the baby dinos and the soldiers grab the girl as the giant arrives. During all this, I should have mentioned that Fang busts out
yeah,
when it hears the babies or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, the burst of strength thing. And then in the next part, episode 19 or episode 9 of the second season, the Colossus part 3, there's a flashback to how the giant, who I guess is named Kamau, I found online, and Amal is the daughter, I think. Anyway, they live peacefully in what resembles a Bantu village. I don't know my African tribes that well, but apparently it's supposed to resemble Bantu. They're like herding chickens and stuff like that. And then Kamu resisted, but the queen grabbed the daughter off of his back and like held the daughter hostage to get him to comply. The soldiers have overcome them and they've chained down Fang, and the queen orders him to kill Fang. And he's about to, when at the last second he changes his mind and smashes the chains, which finally, and then she runs to the hatchlings, and Spear and Mira get free and start fighting the warriors. The queen attempts to kill the little girl, but the giant manages to rescue her and they run down below decks. Spear eventually like realizes they're losing this thing, so Spear and Mira jump overboard, and then Fang follows them. They all jump into the water. The big ship is only one ship. They also have the smaller ships.
They're like landing crafts, what they used to do in their invasions.
So they get to the small ship and then they free the slaves there and then take over this little one. Meanwhile, I think it's the giant goes down below decks and finds all the rest of his people are the rowers.
Yeah, and he starts just murderizing the guards, right? And the thing is that from the what we saw in his flashbacks was that he was the only one who resisted with violence. Everybody else just bent down and they were totally nonviolent. And he was. Yeah, we even showed him being like he doesn't want to be. He's not violence for no reason. He's never been about that. He taught his little girl not to do that. But so he's the one that got turned into a weapon. The rest of them were rowing the damn ship. Well,
Yep. And then at the end, they've managed to take over both of these.
yeah,
They've killed the queen, they've taken over these ships, and it looks like everything's going to be good. And then the giant sees the other giant coming across the water, the fire giant, the former chieftain that made a deal with the devil to become a fire giant, is like seen approaching, walking on water.
yeah. It's like, oh fuck.
And that is the end of these two episodes. I'll leave the last one to you. Echoes of Eternity.
they have parted ways with the giant ship, the Colossus. So we have our three, actually not three anymore because we have two surviving babies. So even more, right? And they're sailing. It's clear now that Mira knows enough and she's sailing back to find her people, right? So they land, and she's home, but there's nobody there. And last time she was there, she was taken by the slavers. So as far as she knows, everybody's dead.
Yeah, they lived by the coast, right? They
Right.
lived right by the beach and fished and stuff like that.
Yeah, and nobody was there, so she's really distraught. But as everybody's exploring around, what happens is that thing comes across a woman and scares the crap out of her. When the sounds is heard, Mira comes running, and it's someone she knows and knows her.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me back up just a bit because you forgot a small piece, but it's another reminder that this show keeps reminding you of stuff. Spear has a dream at the start of this where a pack of saber-toothed tigers attacked his tribe when he was a kid. This is where we finally learn that he is Neanderthal, or at least mostly Neanderthal, because they are much more Neanderthal looking than even him.
right.
This pack of saber-toothed tigers attacked his tribe. They killed his father. They eventually killed most of them, but Spear managed to kill them, the last few of them. And I think he became the leader of the
Yeah,
tribe.
even though he was still a kid, he was that powerful, and ferocious. And I think he used cleverness to kill them. But like again, he lost his family. There was still a tribe there, but his dad was dead, and there's no sign of the rest of his family. And he's just so this probably losing family. Yeah,
Back to the reunion. Yeah, bathing is this woman that Fang comes across. She screams, and then like Mira comes and they reunite. They know each other.
she leads her back to the village. Village is in this. Uh, it, Actually, isn't it sort of built up in this?
Yeah, they've all moved up to the mountains away from
Yeah.
from the shore, which is smart,
Yep.
So now they have this cliffside village. Yeah.
And of course they're welcome back, and even though Spear is weird looking, and you got a giant they're just welcome. They're like, you brought our daughter back. She's essentially like the princess of the village, and they never thought they'd see her again. And it's great. Sort of.
There's a celebration with dancing and one thing we haven't talked about is how there's these moments of humor throughout this show. There's a time in the previous episode where the baby dinosaurs keep running out and jumping in the ocean and sinking, and Fang has to grab them and bring them back aboard. And they just, what do? They run out and do it again.
Yeah,
It's
they are
like,
they are googly eyed dum dums. They're but what you would expect. They're literally babies, and one of them is actually smarter than the other one slightly.
in this one, Mira shows Spear to like her home, like it's an actual house, and we sleep in the house. And like Fang comes, Fang can't fit through the doorway. So Fang just like tries once, twice, just breaks the wall down to get inside. And
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, of course. I mean, you're not separating the boy and his dinosaur. That ain't happening. And then what? This entire time, for a long time now, over episodes, they've been being tracked by the fire giant, right? And they're sleeping there, and you get the actually, does he wake up? And I think he actually starts painting on the walls in the
yes,
yeah. It's
he
just
does
like
cave paintings on the wall.
his whole story. He writes it on the wall. You see the entirety of their story there. He stays up and does that. But they're awoken to an alarm. The village is like, yeah, there's like this column of fire and smoke coming from the coast or whatever, from that direction. Because he is who he is, he's immediately like, what? I am new here, but I am here to defend this place. They roar out the front door to go do that. And it's the fire giant. And the thing about it is, he's on fire. You can't fucking fight him. All the brute strength and the biting and the calling is not working so well, right?
Yep.
He turns into this giant fire snake and pursues them up the mountain. They're cornered, and the fire giant severely injures Fang, like burns the crap out of her. And of course, Spear is enraged. It puts Fang down. It does not stop Spear. That is not enough to stop our boy. He just keeps fighting him with pure primal rage. As he is on fire, just kills this guy to death. And he's just,
Yeah.
you will not hurt my family. So
Yeah.
he has burned over his entire body.
Yeah. He's fallen off a cliff with
Yeah.
this guy and burned all over his entire body. The devil or whatever it is, this underworld demon being like reclaims him.
He's like, you suck. You suck. You failed again. I gave you all this power. You still failed.
But basically, at this point, Spear is dying.
Yeah.
The first one that really realizes it, I think, is Fang. Fang sniffs him and is like, okay, I gotta go. He's dying,
No.
and runs out, and the little dinosaurs follow her out.
Yeah.
And then I guess they have sex at this point.
What I got was this Mira is distraught. Medicine woman is like, nah, he's not gonna make it. The medicine person is like, he's not gonna make it. And he just is saying her name, and she's looking around at everything, all the pictures on the wall. It comes back to, again, family. Everything he's done, it's all this about belonging and family. And so she climbs on top of him as he's 100% burnt. And the next thing we see, because we never see them being intimate in that way.
There's enough motion that you can tell what's going on. It
Right.
seems very unlikely that that could be happening in that situation, but okay. All right. We'll go with it. There have been crazier things in this series.
Oh, hell yeah. It's like, and also like, he's like, I'm going to get extra geeky now. You know how you get a tree that won't produce any fruit? Yeah, you prune the crap out of it. It literally works. Things want to live. So that is what, anyway, they do. And then what do we cut to next?
Life will find a way.
Yeah, you go.
Take us all the way back. So yeah, they flash forward to what it is pretty obviously Spear and Mira's daughter, because she looks like a combination of them riding one of the now grown baby dinosaurs. And we see that Mira's alive, their daughter is alive, Fang is still alive, and so are Fang's two progeny.
Yeah.
Which look like a cross between Fang and Red. So setting up for maybe more adventures. I don't know, but that is the season finale. And that brings us pretty much to the end of this episode. Overall, this is one the algorithm had, on all my streaming stuff. This has been recommended to me so many times as like the number one thing you should watch. Based on everything we know about you, you should watch this. And boy, did the algorithm get it right on this one, because this rules. This series is so good, at least for the stuff that I like. It like hits a lot of the major things. The one thing that is lacking, in my opinion, that would just send it over the top, couple of things. One would be a really cool rock soundtrack mixed in. Maybe not constant, but like that would be a little more heavy metal for me. And then of course boobs, a little more nudity, which since it was for basic cable, I get. They were like, we're never going to get away with that. We're not HBO. But if it had those two final ingredients, it would rocket to the top of the list. Even as is, it's really damn good.
We've been struggling not to talk about it because it's amazing. It's really good. It is the best comic book I've read in years. The number one thing is it takes this caveman archetype and the primalness. It's not the violence. It is this family love. That's the real primal part. Even though we see it, we said, but a lot to me, for this character, it's all about family and love. He keeps on coming back, like on the ship. He's like, why is this asshole doing this? He could clearly kick our asses, with the giants. When he realizes that, oh, she has his baby. And his thing is, I'm freeing us. I'm freeing him from this. Let's free the babies. He's all about it. And I love it. And I love the fact that he dies basically saving his family. That is a primal desire of a lot of men, I know for me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I want to go out. That'd be awesome. So all these things together. An interesting thing, very particular, that really doesn't speak to the goodness or not, but like, so they present Mira from the beginning. She's of sort of a neutral tone of color or whatever. But when we get to her village, because of especially the kind of hair that they have, it's definitely more African flavor, right? In the end, when she grows her hair back at the very end, it's actually like an afro. And it's very interesting because I know people fell in love with her as a character, and I wonder if they would have in the same way if she had appeared with an afro. But I just thought it was a clever bit of storytelling. But this whole thing is this great story of loss and family and survival. One of the things that Becca noted is that if you started the episode where the Vikings come back and everybody in their village has been murdered,
Yeah.
you might think those are the heroes.
Yeah.
That they're the heroes because they're going to go get their vengeance on the people who murdered their entire village. That's not usually something where it's so black and white like that. I got all the thumbs up. This is so fun. I promised I was going to use this as an opportunity to give you a hard time. It's like, Eric, this has made up for so much of the terrible stuff that we've watched.
Hey, this was always part of the plan. The fact that you wanted to jump ahead, I don't know why you suddenly decided to jump ahead of the timeline while we were watching this and start watching Primal, but
I'm like you. They kept pushing it to me. And like, you would like this. You would like this. You would like this. I'm like, maybe I would like this. Yeah.
all right, well, let that be a lesson to you. If we're ever working on a theme, don't jump the timeline. But we're not done with dinosaurs. There is more to come. You'll have to tune in next time for that. If you want to write to us, we are GC8 Podcast, letter G, letter C, number 8, podcast at gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page and we have a Facebook group. It's like set to private because Facebook won't let us make it public for some reason. Just send a request to join. We'll approve you. Like, subscribe, rate, and review all the things. But the main thing we're trying to get you to do this year is tell 2 friends about the show. Just tell 2 people, get 2 people on board with, summer vacations coming up. So maybe like load up your phone with downloaded episodes and then play it on the car ride. That is a great way to introduce people to it. So until next time, this is Eric.
And this is Will.
Signing off.
Like, you'll get a lot of dialogue between Spear and Fang that is, rah,